What's going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And on today's episode of Marchio Reviews, I'm reviewing Extraction. Extraction stars Chris Hemsworth. Now, the plot of the movie follows a black ops mercenary played by Chris Hemsworth, who must go to India and rescue a drug lord's son from another drug lord. Now, this movie is fantastic. It starts off great. The action is what makes this movie interesting. The screenplay is done by Joe Russo, and it's produced by Joe and Anthony Russo. Now, if those names sound familiar, Anthony and Joe Russo are the ones behind big Marvel movies, like the Avengers movies and certain Captain America movies. The movie is directed by Sam Hargrave, who is a stunt coordinator, and he also has a cameo in this movie, and he also worked with the Russo brothers on certain Marvel films. Now, seeing a stunt coordinator direct an action movie like this really works, because they understand the scope of things and they understand how action scenes work. This is what makes this movie fantastic, is the action scenes. Other than that, this movie falls flat. The story is not that engaging and not that interesting. Now, the villain in this movie is really dull and doesn't do much. He doesn't lift a finger at all. He has his henchmen do everything for him, and it's really sad, because if this movie had a good villain, maybe this movie would have been better. The villain, like I said, really doesn't do anything at all. He just sits around and has his people do everything for him, while Chris Hemsworth's character and certain other characters are running around India trying to escape. There is a character in this movie who is the drug lord's son's right-hand man, and the right-hand man is trying to rescue the character of Ovi, who is the son and the young boy, and he's basically also a mercenary, so to speak, in a way, ex-special forces, what they say in the movie, and he is really a equal character to Chris Hemsworth's character. There's a fight scene in the road of India, and it's really well done. There is also a 10 to 12 minute action scene that looks like it's a one-take, one-shot scene. However, you can actually tell where the edits are. It does take away from the feel of it, and we know why that the edits were done, and you can tell that certain scenes are clipped or edited and cut for, dramatic effect. Other than that, this movie really is fun to watch. Anything that Chris Hemsworth is in is fun to watch. Of course, he's had some iffy roles, as of late, because of certain movies he's been in, especially movies that he's not in that stars any Marvel or any Thor movie to that nature. Now, the movie does have a John Wick style feel and action feel to it, which is fantastic, because like I said, a stunt coordinator directed this movie, and a stunt coordinator also is the director behind John Wick. So you can tell that they have an eye for action, and they can have an eye for upping the ante, so to speak, in every fight scene and every interesting aspect of how things are done. Other than that, like I said, this movie is really dull. The movie starts out great, and we are introduced to Chris Hemsworth, and then he goes on and must rescue Ovi, and then big action sequence. We find out the history of who Chris Hemsworth is. I did want more backstory about Chris Hemsworth's character. We only get a dull, a small explanation from him when he's explaining things to the boy. Other than that, Ovi himself is also another backstory where I wanted to know more of, but the bond that these two share in the movie is really interesting. Also, there's a cameo appearance by David Arbor in the movie, which is really important and really interesting. He's only in the movie a total, maybe, I want to say, 10 minutes total, and you'll see why. And it's a very emotional scene, but when David Arbor's in it, he really ups his acting and really ups the ante with Chris Hemsworth, and it's really good to see. The other factor that was interesting was that there are certain times where the dialogue was being said and you couldn't understand what was being said in the dialogue. There are certain scenes where Chris Hemsworth is mumbling his words. Even Ovi, and trying to pronounce his words and what he's saying, was really hard to understand, especially in a movie like this. Like I said, the action scenes is what makes this movie fantastic. But other than that, I give Extraction a 3 out of 5 stars. Now, the reason I give it a 3 out of 5 stars is because it takes away from the story, which needed more in-depth explanation of what was happening and the villain needed to be more engaging. You can check out Extraction now on Netflix. It was released on April 24, 2020 on Netflix. And if you've seen it, let me know in the comment section below what you think of it and what you would rate it. Alright everyone, that does it for today's episode of Marchio Reviews. I'm Anthony. Thanks for tuning in.